Chapter 1: Historical Background and Motivations of Belarus. When mentioning Belarus, people often think of a small country in Eastern Europe bordering Russia, Poland, Lithuania, Latvia, and Ukraine. This country has long been considered as the younger brother of the Russian Federation on all fronts, from economics, politics, to military. However, the fact that Belarus openly considered mounting nuclear warheads on multiple launch rocket systems has startled the whole world. Because this is no longer a normal military declaration of deterrence, but it marks a dangerous turning point. A small country can become a nuclear spearhead right on the border of the European Union. The question is, why is Belarus considering this option? The answer lies in the political and military context that has lasted for the past 3 decades. 1.1. Belarus, Russia's Western Sentinel. Since the collapse of the Soviet Union, Belarus has become an independent country. But unlike its neighbors Poland, Latvia, or Lithuania, which quickly leaned towards the West, Belarus has chosen to stand firmly on Russia's side. President Alexander Lukashenko, who has been in power since 1994, has built extremely close relations with Moscow. On the defense map, Belarus is like Russia's forward defense line facing NATO. Just looking at the map is enough to understand its importance. From Minsk, capital of Belarus, to Warsaw, capital of Poland, is just over 500 kilometers. If Belarus possesses or deploys nuclear weapons, it would be like placing a sword of Damocles right over the head of the European Union. 1.2. Political causes and pressure from the West. For many years, Belarus has been sanctioned by the European Union and the United States because of its human rights situation and repression of the opposition. After the 2020 election, when Mr. Lukashenko was re-elected amid allegations of fraud, the West increased pressure. This pushed Minsk closer to Moscow than ever before. In a humorous way, Belarus can be likened to a neighbor whose door was blocked by the whole neighborhood with only a big friend standing by to protect him. And that friend is Russia. 1.3. The Ukraine factor and the spreading war. The war in Ukraine since 2022 has put Belarus in a difficult position. Belarus has not directly participated in the war, but its territory has been used as a springboard for Russian attacks. NATO therefore considers Belarus an accomplice. The escalating tension has made Minsk want to have a stronger deterrence card. And nothing is more effective than mentioning nuclear weapons. 1.4. From declaration to reality, a worrying shift. To be fair, this is not the first time Belarus has mentioned nuclear weapons, but this time the difference is they openly mentioned attaching tactical nuclear warheads to multiple launch rocket systems, an extremely mobile weapon. If intercontinental ballistic missiles are likened to magic swords hung high in the sky, then multiple launch rocket systems with nuclear warheads are like fireworks nests that can be fired at any time in any direction. This makes military experts have to redraw the strategic map and urgently calculate defense scenarios. Chapter 2. Technology, Strategy, and International Response. 2.1. Multiple launch rocket systems, weapons that seem old but never outdated. Multiple launch rocket systems are designed to fire many rockets in a short time, creating a rain of fire of destruction over a large area. If in the past they only carried conventional warheads, now the idea of attaching nuclear warheads turns them into battlefield monsters. For example, a Belarusian Polonez M complex, if the conventional warhead is replaced with a low-yield tactical nuclear warhead, can create a destructive force equivalent to tens of thousands of tons of TNT. Imagine a rain of 8 to 12 small nuclear bombs falling on an area as large as the city of Warsaw. That is a scenario that NATO generals cannot sleep on. 2.3. NATO and neighboring countries' reactions. It is not surprising that NATO immediately spoke out. Western officials called Belarus's move a dangerous escalation. Poland has increased its Patriot deployment,
while Lithuania and Latvia have asked the European Union to impose additional sanctions. Meanwhile, Russia, as usual, has remained calm, even supportive. This means that Russia's Western Front has been reinforced with an additional layer of deterrence. Russia and Belarus can be likened to two swords combined. Russia holds strategic weapons, Belarus holds tactical weapons. 2.4. Concerns of the people and international public opinion. On social media, many Belarusians commented humorously, "We went from a country famous for birch forests and potatoes to now suddenly famous for mobile nuclear weapons." However, concerns about the risk of becoming the first nuclear attack target are also increasingly widespread in Belarusian society. Chapter 3. Global Consequences and Historical Lessons. 3.1. Risk of a new nuclear race in Europe. When Belarus considers attaching nuclear weapons to its multiple launch rockets, other countries cannot sit still. NATO may be forced to deploy more tactical nuclear weapons in Eastern Europe. At that time, Europe will return to the Cold War era, where every military move can trigger a global disaster. 3.2. Lessons from the Cold War. In the 1960s, the Cuban Missile Crisis showed that a single move to deploy nuclear weapons near its borders could bring the world to the brink of nuclear war. Belarus is on a similar path today, but this time in the heart of Europe, not in the remote Caribbean. 3.3. Belarus's political significance and position. Politically, Belarus wants to prove to the West that it is not easily isolated. Militarily, it wants to assert its role as a nuclear frontline to receive more aid and protection from Russia. But in the long run, this move could see Belarus labeled as a nuclear detonator and become the first target in any conflict scenario. 3.4. Summary and message. In short, Belarus is considering mounting nuclear warheads on multiple launch rockets is not just a military statement. It reflects security concerns from the Ukraine war, the increasingly close ties with Russia, the risk of opening a new nuclear race in Europe. History reminds us that every military decision can create a global domino effect, and a small country like Belarus can become the focus that makes the whole world hold its breath. End. Appeal. You and your friends are following the History and War channel, where we analyze the hottest developments in history and global war. If you find this analysis useful, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next content, because history is not just the past, but also a mirror for us to understand the present and predict the future.